We all know the story of the princess and the frog, but if that story took place here in the deserts of the Southwest, it would end with the princess tripping absolute sack and lying limp in a pile of her own vomit, because within these deserts lies the largest toad in America, and one with a poison that's not only psychedelic, but is also lethal. And today, I'm gonna try to catch one. This toad's psychedelic poison has been getting more and more popular, and with that is killing more and more people. Some assume that because the stuff is all natural, it's not bad for you. But rattlesnake venom, poison ivy, and malaria are also all natural and don't do wonders for your health. To find this animal, I've traveled to southern Arizona, one of the hottest and driest places in the country. And if I'm successful, I'll probably be the only person in history to have found and filmed 2 animals whose toxins have drug-like properties. Let's see if I can pull it off. A hot, dry desert is probably the last place you'd want to be if you are an amphibian, especially the largest amphibian with the most water to lose. So how we're gonna find this Sonoran Desert Toad is to actually wait until nightfall. Then the humidity will rise, the temperature will drop, these toads won't dry out in the sun, and it should give us our best bet at finding this massive amphibian. At night, the desert comes to life, with creatures of all sorts emerging from their lairs to take advantage of the cooler temperatures. Tonight, these creatures include both me and Spencer from the YouTube channel My Wild Backyard, who have emerged from our hotel rooms to see if we can find ourselves this legendary toad. Although it may not be as infamous as something like the rattlesnakes that live here, the toxin of this toad has still claimed quite a few lives. But before going into how exactly it works, I need to find one first. Alright, you guys may have thought I couldn't do it, but behold, the largest toad in America. Yeah, no, this is a baby red-spotted toad, and it's just about as good as we're doing tonight. This little guy is probably just recently hatched, just entered the world, so very cute. Probably, you know, more similar to a little tab of acid than licking a giant toad, but we're gonna put this guy back and see if we can find the real deal. Smaller toads like this are common on the roads, but for a giant, I'm gonna need to look for a place with a little more humidity, and this desert creek is a perfect spot. Sonoran desert toads emerge from these waterways to hunt on shore, eating anything from other toads to even mice, and lurking in the brush along the creek was exactly the monster I was looking for.
Good catch.
Look at that! Oh, dude! That right there is a desert toad. Monster amphibian, biggest toad in America, and one that can absolutely get you schmiggity wasted. We're gonna talk about this amazing frog. Here we have our massive toad. Just look at the size of this. This is the biggest toad you'll find anywhere in America that's native. These guys can get 7.5 inches long, and this guy is just about pushing it. Now you may look at this toad and think it's a little chunky, a little bit lazy, and a really weird thing about this toad is that it is actually so lazy, it does not drink water with its mouth. This thing will just plop down in a puddle or some other water source and just absorb it through its stomach. Super weird and a great way to survive in the desert. So let's talk about the fun stuff. The poison of this toad has made it infamous. You can hear that call. He's actually a little threat display, seeing if I'll let him go, but I need to milk him for content. But we aren't gonna milk him for poison because one of the things that it emits is actually DMT. So this toad that I'm holding is technically by law a controlled substance. You can't move it over state lines. If you own this toad with the purpose of distributing it for, you know, getting Swifty off it, you can get arrested. So it's weird to hold a toad that is just about as legal to own as like a street drug. In America, people found to have this toad for the purpose of abusing its poison are sentenced to 10 years in prison. The specific type of DMT produced by this toad, 5-MeO-DMT, is 6 times more potent than the normal stuff and comes with a whole host of symptoms. It has such a strong effect on the mind that people often don't come out of the trip the same person, their perception of life being permanently altered. The drug often causes causes extreme bodily reactions completely out of your control that I can't even mention on YouTube, and also causes the effect of whiting out, where you completely dissociate from your mind and body and are completely incapacitated, left unable to move for up to 30 minutes. People have described being on this drug as the closest a human being can come to experiencing what death is like. The psychological effect it has on people is so severe that, just like every other thing I've talked about on the channel, scientists are studying it to see if it can be turned into medicine, specifically drugs that can rewire the brain to cure depression and anxiety. All of that comes from just one chemical, but the rest of its secretion is a whole other story. Now, what will this poison do to you? Now, you may have heard the phrase licking a toad, but that is the last thing you want to do. This toad's poison is meant as a poison to kill things that try to bite it, so people's pet dogs will bite these toads and drop dead. It'll ravage your stomach, hurt like crazy, vomiting, and it can kill you. A lot of people have died trying to get cooked off of this toad. How people die from this toad is usually from their heart failing. Most of the symptoms of poisoning are gastrointestinal, with severe stomach pain and nausea. But what ends up getting people in the end is a whole host of cardiac effects that pile on and stop the victim's heart beating for good. Pretty much every other animal toxin I've discussed kills by stopping the diaphragm and thereby stopping the victim's breathing. So this toad has one of the more unique poisons I've ever come across. And how it works is that these two massive glands behind its eyes, the parotid glands, they exude the toxin. And if you ingest it, you're screwed. But how people get goosed off of it is by actually smoking it. And celebrities like Mike Tyson, Joe Rogan, they've actually talked about how this will make them feel. And supposedly, within 15 seconds of smoking it, you will trip sack. Now, should you do this? Absolutely not. Not only can you die very easily, but people are poaching this toad from the wild and actually using it to just get janked up, which is really messed up. This toad is now threatened because of people just being degenerates pretty much. So if you see this toad, leave it be. So the Sonoran Desert Toad, the coolest amphibian and the most dangerous you're gonna find in the United States. We're gonna get this guy back, and please do not mess with this toad if you find it. They are a gorgeous, amazing animal that deserves to live out here and not in some degenerate's dorm room. So we're gonna get this guy back. What a cool amphibian. The 5-MeO-DMT that this toad makes is now produced synthetically, so there really is no reason for anyone to remove them from the wild. And it would be such a shame to lose this creature for such a preventable reason. You might think there's nothing on Earth with a poison quite like this toad, but there's a creature in this very desert that does. One that's not even an amphibian and is one of the most alien things I've ever seen. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys next time.